Welcome back. Okay, we are moving on to step 2 of cellular respiration pathway, pyruvate oxidation. Do you remember what oxidation means? Give you a second to think about it. What does it mean for the electron in oxidation? Means electron is removed, right? We're removing electrons along the way to move it down the line, to move energy down the line for our end pathway. So in pyruvate oxidation, we're going to remove electrons from pyruvate because the goal is to make things, break bonds, remove electrons, make things smaller, so then we can move it down the line and make ATP in the end. All right. So pyruvate oxidation. What does this look like? Pyruvate, so we were out in the cytosol before for glycolysis, and we made 2 molecules of pyruvate. And right, we had 6 carbons, and we went to 2 molecules of 3 carbons. So we have 2 molecules of pyruvate. They come into the mitochondrial matrix, and they move on in. They get in there. They use a transport protein to get into the mitochondrial matrix. And then the carbon molecule is broken down more, right? So that's the goal. Remember, that's our goal. We have a 3 carbon molecule, and we want to break it down smaller, release energy through the breaking of bonds. So we have our 3 carbon molecule seen by our 3 dots here. It comes in to the mitochondria, and this is where we start some more reactions, and we get broken in to some acetyl-CoA, which is a 2 carbon molecule here, seen by 2 dots, by the 2 balls, the 2 carbons, and 1 CO2 molecule, which is a 1 carbon molecule. We also get another electron carrier, NADH. So over here on our reactions, we get pyruvate, we get CoA, coenzyme A, which is an enzyme that helps our reaction. Then we get our molecule, acetyl-CoA, which is that 2 carbon molecule, and we get CO2. So now we're starting to breathe out, right? So we breathed in to start our reaction, and now we're starting to breathe out that CO2. So you've been holding your breath this whole time. Now you can start to breathe out, right? And now we're also adding some electron carriers. So let's look at it a little bit more. Maybe it's a little clearer on this slide. We can look at it in a different way. So remember, we came from glycolysis, and we had our 3 carbon molecule, pyruvate, 1, 2, 3, and it comes in through a transport protein, gets transported in, And then we use coenzyme A, which was in that reaction that we saw before. Coenzyme A is used. There's my mouse. We get out some CO2. We reduce NAD. What does reduction mean for our electrons? We're adding electrons, right? We need this to carry electrons. So it gets added electrons. NADH is now carrying some electrons. Here's our coenzyme A, which is a protein that helps our reaction along. And then we get acetyl-CoA, which is a 2-carbon molecule. So that's a lot to get out of here. So we get the breakdown of this 3-carbon molecule. 1, 2, 3. Let's first follow the carbons. We see 1 carbon here. We breathe out some CO2 a little bit from this reaction. And then we get acetyl-CoA. 1, 2. So there's our 3 carbons. And this happens twice, right? So how many acetyl-CoAs do I end up with? Because we started with 2 pyruvates. So how many acetyl-CoAs should I end up with? 2, right? 2 acetyl-CoAs. We want to make sure we end up with the same amount of carbons from that 1 glucose molecule. So then that means how many CO2s should I end up with as well? If I started with 2 pyruvates, how many CO2s should I end up with? 2, right? Because I want to end up with the same amount of carbons. So that covers my carbons. So where do all my electrons go? This, right, is called pyruvate oxidation, right? Like the pyruvate is oxidized. What does oxidation mean? We lose electrons. So my electrons from my pyruvate are moving. I'm breaking my bonds. I'm losing my electrons. So where are my electrons going? They're moving into the reduction reaction of NADH. So how many pyruvates do I have? 2. So I get out 2 NADHs. All right. So that's what it looks like. So this is what I get. Here, I get out 2 compounds, or acetyl-CoAs. I get out 2 CO2s and 2 NADHs. See this? Times 2. And this all happens in the mitochondrial matrix. So we go from pyruvate, 3 carbons, to acetyl-CoA, 2 carbons. And acetyl-CoA then moves on to step 3, which is my citric acid cycle And some of you may have heard it called the Krebs cycle. And we will talk about that in the next video. So come back.